Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. I wanted to apologize for not releasing any videos last week. I wanted to share with you that my husband and I are actually going to make a big change in our lives, and we are actually going to list our house soon in Oregon to be able to move to Central Florida. We'll be able to golf year round. The weather is way more our style. We can go to warm beaches. We can go to professional sports games very close, and we're super excited to start this new chapter. So last week was a little crazy, to say the least. There could be more weeks coming up where I don't release videos, but that doesn't mean I'm not still doing it. It's just life is a little crazy right now and I have to prioritize. So thank you for sticking with me and for checking my channel again. I am going to be releasing videos over the next few weeks, and hopefully there won't be any more that I miss. So today I want to talk about some House bills that passed at the state level here in Oregon. Although this may not affect you because you don't live in the state of Oregon, it could eventually influence how your state handles the same situation in the future. So I encourage you to watch this video. It won't be very long, but to see if this is going to start a precedent or if it's going to be something that we might see catching on across the United States at a state level. Oregon House Bill 3242 was recently signed into law by the governor a few weeks ago. And this House bill directly affects healthcare providers and groups in some positive ways, I believe. However, it could also, if taken to the wrong extreme or anything that can be taken differently than intended, it could become a negative. So let's just talk about this House bill. Again, it's going to be a really high level overview. I am not sure when it goes into effect, although it was signed into law, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's very soon. Oregon House Bill 3242 will pay in-network reimbursement to providers who are in the process of joining a specific healthcare network, and they will pay as in-network prices during the credentialing process. You heard me correctly. Currently, across the board, if a provider is in the process of credentialing with a specific insurance, they cannot see patients unless the patient has out-of-network benefits and they get processed under that, or the patient elects to be self-pay until the provider becomes credentialed and affiliated with the group, if that's applicable. But this is saying that while you're in that 90-day credentialing process with the insurance company, that the provider can see patients with that insurance. They will be paid at in-network rates during that time frame. Of course, you have to have medical necessity and you have to be billing appropriately, and all those other rules and guidelines apply. However, this is a huge game changer. The catch to this, which I was looking for because I was like, how does that work if the provider is not accepted in the network or they find an issue? I was like, how does that work? And basically it says that the group or the individual provider, if they're a sole proprietor, would have to pay back the insurance company if the provider fails the credentialing process. This is a huge gamble. And my follow-up question to this is, what if they don't fail the credentialing process, but maybe it comes back and says, we are a closed network to new providers or something like that? That isn't necessarily the provider's fault, right? They didn't fail credentialing. It's the discretion of the insurance company to decide not to accept them because they have a full panel for whatever specialty or area, whatever reason they provide. This is a gamble, however, because if you're a new provider or a provider that might have some marks on their background that they look for during the credentialing process, you've had any kind of legal issues, malpractice suits, things like that, and there's a chance that the insurance doesn't accept you, any money for patients that you have seen with their insurance during this credentialing and contracting process, you would have to pay back that money. Again, part of this is making good decisions as an administrator, as an owner, knowing your providers, looking at their background, doing your own due diligence ahead of time before submitting their application to the insurance company to make sure that you're checking for any egregious, obvious things that would immediately eliminate them from qualifying to become in-network. This does require a little extra risk. It requires a little extra work, but it's very exciting because if you are someone who is hiring a provider that has a great reputation in the area, they have no malpractice suits, they've never been in trouble legally, they are doing everything that they're supposed to, and you're inviting them, hiring them for your group, this is fantastic. It doesn't delay care to patients, which is great. That's a huge, huge factor. And it allows you to have revenue coming in and make sure that your provider is getting situated, acclimated to how your practice operates. It's really hard to try to hire somebody and tell them, oh wait, you can't start for 90 days, 120 days until we get all your credentialing situated, you get added to our group contracts. I mean, a lot of people know that's just the way it is and it's okay. However, it does put a strain on things. It adds extra unnecessary stress. This House bill in Oregon eliminates a lot of that. If you practice in Oregon and you want to start being able to hire providers to start seeing patients with insurances that you're in network with and you just need to add them to your contract, look into this further. This is fantastic. Again, I don't know when this goes into effect or if it's already in effect. I couldn't find that information. I did this research about 2 weeks ago, so more information may have been released since I was looking into it further. But do your own due diligence, make smart decisions. Don't just assume every provider that you want to bring into your group will pass, but also use it as something to help, especially your small practice. I don't have a ton of answers about this, but you're welcome to leave comments below and we can try to figure out it together if you have certain questions, okay? The second House bill I want to talk about is 2540. Now this one's very interesting. It is to apply patients' out-of-pocket costs or things that they're paying for out of pocket to their deductible and out-of-pocket accruals. There are some stipulations to this, and they are as follows. 1, the service has to be medically necessary and supported by diagnosis and documentation, everything like that. And it needs to be a covered service by the insurance. So if the patient was seeing an in-network provider and it is a covered service, then that would apply. There cannot be a claim submitted to the payer. And the amount is less than the average discounted rate. So the amount the patient pays out of network to the practice directly, like a self-pay, it needs to be less than the average discounted rate or the allowable amount, right, for the service if it was an in-network billed procedure. And then the patient has to submit like the credit paperwork. They have to submit like a itemized invoice and all this information to a dedicated place in order to receive this credit on their out-of-pocket costs. It took me a while to read through this and to kind of understand where this is coming from. However, I think I know the intention of this. I think this is for patients who have a certain insurance where their doctor that they prefer to see is out of network with their benefits. They do not have out of network benefits, so they become a self-pay patient. In that situation, this is allowing them to be credited whatever they pay out of pocket towards their out-of-pocket maximum on their insurance benefits and towards their out-of-pocket benefits, even though they, quote, might not have them, in order to help them fulfill the needs of their plan of out-of-pocket costs, deductibles, things like that. I feel like this is probably not going to be utilized as often as maybe the people who created it think it will be, because I don't know how well known it will be to people. I don't know if people will want to go through the extra work that it will take, because it sounds like there's going to be specific forms that patients have to fill out and specific documentation that they're going to have to submit to some entity. I don't know what yet. Like I said, this is a high-level overview, but there is going to be all this criteria that patients have to fulfill in order to get that credit to their plan. This is huge though, because a lot of people pay so much for their premiums for having insurance, and then there's so many things that are not covered, or their doctors are not in network and they're comfortable seeing that doctor. They want to be treated by that specific doctor, and they will actually be able to do that and receive credit in their benefits. I think this is really nice. Again, I need to learn a little bit more about it, but this is a step in the right direction with allowing people to have a little bit more say in who they receive treatment from, being comfortable to receive treatment, and maybe more likely to get treatment or be seen if they know that this is a possibility, an option for paying out of pocket. This is something that if you have a lot of self-pay patients because you aren't participating with plans in Oregon that a lot of people have, and they maybe don't have out-of-network benefits, or they choose to not utilize their out-of-network benefits but pay cash for the services, I think you should look into this a lot further. 2 big House bills passed in Oregon, signed by the governor. I'm not sure when they go into effect, but if these are things that you want to know more about, you would like to utilize, especially the credentialing thing, or if you have patients coming to you saying, I want to get credit for this out-of-pocket costs to my insurance plan, you need to make sure that you understand all of the information out there, what your rights are as a practice, what the patient's rights are as the consumer. Again, if you have any questions or comments about this, please leave that in the comments below. I will do the best I can to try to answer the questions you have. However, I encourage you to do your own research, because I might not have the time, and it's just best for you, knowing your specific situation, to look into the answers for your specific questions. Again, these are game changers. This might catch on across the United States, and the state you're in might end up seeing this, and Oregon is setting a precedence, and it might take off. So don't be surprised if you start hearing these kinds of things in your local legislature, and you should be watching and listening and learning if they do, so that you can be up to date on any changes that go into effect. If you liked today's video, please smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share this video with anybody whom you feel would benefit. I appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.